Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Dennis Saliba, Occult and Forteana. And in today's video or today's stream, I'm going to be talking about a bit of a controversial subject, but this is our first episode of cryptid analysis. And I'm going to be talking about giant spider sightings worldwide. Now, being the nature of the show and what it is, and discussions on the strange, I'm inclined to believe that giant spiders are real. There are way too many giant spider sightings throughout the world. There's giant spider sightings across the Congo, South America, North America, parts of Mexico, parts of Burma. There's stories of Vietnam and Papua New Guinea also having sightings. But I'm not claiming that these are going to be scientifically confirmed creatures. I'm just claiming that the possibility of these sightings are plausible, but also that's going to be for another episode. Space Bank, you changed your name again. That's going to be for another episode because the Congo does have a giant snake photograph in it, but that's not the topic of today. And the reason why I think that these creatures tend to be undocumented is that they typically hunt at night. It's as simple as a reason as that they typically hunt at night, and unless you're going to go out there with LiDAR equipment and do like underground surveys of these creatures, I doubt that you're likely to encounter them. But if you do, that those that encounter them tend not to live to tell the tale anyway. So I'm a bit 50-50 on the whole spider topic myself. Do I think it's plausible? Yes, because there is a third and a fourth working theory that I have, and other people have as well. But in terms of actual modern scientific confirmation, definitely not, because there are a lot of hoaxes. So I can't deny that there's going to be a lot of hoaxes to different accounts. But let's get into today's cryptid that I tend to believe is more real than false, although evidence is a bit sparse to come by. Now, I used to have images of the cryptozoologist William J. Gibbons. William J. Gibbons had photos of, or allegedly had photos of, the babies of the J'ba Fofi. Now, J'ba Fofi is the Congolese word for giant. I'll present like that. Is the word for giant or great. And Fofi, the word for spider in the Congolese language. And interestingly, sightings are reported across Kenya, Mozambique, and throughout parts of the Congo, and even where the local Baka tribes reside, where the local Pygmies reside. So I tend to believe the locals because the locals know their land. And interestingly enough, drawing another parallel, I just remember watching a couple of videos on giant spider sightings in Venezuela, although not directly related because that's a different species. This is more of a tarantula. But there's giant spider sightings in Canada, and also giant spider tales and folklore in Native American Indian culture too. So this is a pretty universal, pretty global type of take on a rather interesting type of cryptid. So bear that in mind. J'ba is giant or great, and Fofi is spider. And this is a tarantula, ground-dwelling tarantula type of cryptid. It is reported to be the size of a dog, a 4 to 5 foot leg span. And one comment that I saw on another video reported that the Smithsonian has a copy of the J'ba Fofi, specimen, and it's a 6-foot size specimen as well. So that might be an outlier. We don't really know the full size of this creature, but that's the type of scale that we're working with, a bit bigger than a coconut crab. So the evaluation and identification of the J'ba Fofi, the giant spider of the Congo, and the Mokolomembe, which is another cryptid reported to be more akin to a sauropod, possibly similar to the Stegosaurus. But we don't fully know what the Mokolomembe is either, but it's reported to be a sauropod of some kind. So the J'ba Fofi, or the giant spider, is a legendary arachnid reportedly inhabiting the dense rainforests of the Congo. And interestingly, it is reported to be a brown, hairy-colored arachnid, dark brown, very difficult to spot, but it has a purple abdomen, either covering the full abdomen or purple markings under the abdomen, in which the local Baka tribe members can see and identify the creature as such, which they warn their children to keep a safe distance from, as it is highly venomous. And in terms of the scale of the fangs of the full-size creature are reported to be as big as this candle, if not the size of this drink bottle. So that's the type of scale that you are working with. Kind of terrifying. Well, of all the creatures, this is one of those that terrify me the most, except for maybe giant centipedes. This is something about the bug kingdom that terrifies me, with their 300 million plus years of evolution of killing and hunting, which just irks me much more. I would take a giant snake over a giant spider any day. Not that you're going to really survive either, but personally, I wouldn't want to encounter a fully grown J'ba Fofi, or heck no. So through the analysis of historical reports, indigenous testimonies, and modern exploration evidence, this is by an independent scientist, Shibanjan Paul Roy, is my examination of methods of identification based on arachnid biology, behavior patterns, and environmental factors conducive to supporting more such a creature. My findings contribute to the broad understanding of cryptozoological studies and the interplay between myth and reality in remote ecosystems. As reports of the J'ba Fofi date back to the early 20th century, missionary accounts with subsequent writings by explorers and local inhabitants. Notable mentions include the 1938 account by British missionary R.K. Lloyd and multiple 20th century anecdotes from hunters and villagers. So again, evidence is very sparse. I'm not saying that they are confirming such an existence. I just find it interesting that the frequency of the sightings are correlated with the location. That's the angle that I'm getting at. And despite the consistency of these reports, yeah, no conclusive physical evidence that we know of. But again, there are photos of William J. Gibbons, which I used to have copies of, but I don't have them here on me right now. It's on my other computer, where the babies are said to grow as a yellowy, like a bit like this candle, but like a yellowy, pale, silky color, like an almondy type of color, and with little purple spots on their backs. And there are photos of this. I remember seeing them, but the local Baka tribe warned Gibbons that he couldn't take those samples and specimens back home for fear of awakening the wrath of the spider, because in African folklore, the spider is a heavily revered creature. It is seen as a guardian of the forest, and it's also seen as a guardian of the balancing of the ecosystem. So there is a symbolic and sort of like a religious meaning behind it, or like a spiritual meaning behind it. But basically, the typical J'ba Fofi description is a leg span of up to 5 feet, although I did see one comment if you were to take it at face value, that the Smithsonian has a 6-foot size specimen. And other missionaries commenting in the comments section have also reported seeing the same thing. So basically, the J'ba Fofi is said to use a combination of ambush tactics like a tarantula and web building to catch prey. Basically, it creates tripwires, elaborate tripwires, and also it creates fake-looking pygmy huts, and it basically ensnares its prey in the tripwires, and then it comes out much like a trapdoor spider. However, it is also said to be able to jump 6 feet. So that's a pretty frightening 5-foot-legged wingspan spider being able to jump 6 feet. It's a pretty frightening idea. And it is reported to be a manhunter as well, or quote unquote the drinker of children. And it also hunts antelope. So your best bet will probably be spider fang markings within antelope, or the eggs, which the local Barker tribe will tell you you can't take those eggs home anyway because they're very guarded. And also giant spider molts would be your 3 forms of evidence that you probably would be looking for, unless you manage to capture a live specimen somehow. But is it worth the risk? Because this is a highly venomous creature. So the diet of the J'ba Fofi is described as a variety of animals. Local reports mention small mammals, birds, occasionally larger animals, and the giant spider is said to inject venom to paralyze its prey before consuming it. There are a couple of anecdotes about the giant spider killing soldiers, killing Portuguese soldiers, Belgian soldiers, and also killing 2 porters guarding a missionary, and a couple of the local Barker tribe members as well. So basically, like mainstream spiders, the J'ba Fofi would theoretically use digestive enzymes to liquefy its prey's internal tissues, making it easier to consume as spiders typically feed. And the spider would suck out the liquefied contents like a milkshake and leaving behind an empty carcass. And these accounts that the J'ba Fofi builds its nests in the jungle, often near trails or paths used by animals. These nests are typically hidden and camouflaged with the dense foliage, making them hard to detect. So again, they could be web-bound creatures, but probably they're not tree-dwelling creatures high up in the trees. But there is a different species of giant spider cryptid where there is an alleged photograph that I do want to show you guys a bit later. But that's a different species. I suspect that that's a different species. So giant spider remains are lacking, and most arachnologists consider it to be a myth rather than a real species. I mean, I think it's plausible, but is it likely that you're going to find it? Probably not, because this may be a remnant of a Mesozoic era species. There's that possibility. Another working theory is that this is a type of species with a convergent evolution path, and it may have more to do with more in common with crustaceans, and like the coconut crab. This is like a type of crustacean arachnid that's not yet classified, so we don't really know. And that's a very interesting theory. I'm not saying that it's confirmed. I'm just saying that it's interesting that this species is seen as being able to breathe through its abdomen and potentially having more developed lungs than bookworm lungs of a typical spider species. So every giant spider sighting, basically the abdomen is said to compress and move like they have more developed lungs. So could they be cousins of a crustacean? Maybe. Another criticism that's often raised is that the giant spider sightings also would be too heavy. And there's the cube law. Basically, when the spider grows by square, I think, square size or square, the weight of the creature is cubed in weight. Therefore, it would be too heavy to sustain itself, and the exoskeleton would literally cause the spider to collapse on itself in the current environment. Having said that, that doesn't mean that these forests don't have higher levels of oxygen as well. And oxygen and gigantism in spiders, snakes, bugs, arthropods are quite consistently scientifically studied. I forget who did the study because I'm not from a biology background, just so you guys know. But it did take a bit of researching to dig deeper into this and to look into this. So this is a pretty interesting discussion. I think possibly drones could be an interesting study, like a study of drones, activated cameras, and also LiDAR. I think LiDAR readings would be necessary because this is said to be a burrowing species. Now, here's one article, one testimony that I do want to talk about. In 1938, the persons Reginald and Marguerite Lloyd described as they drove, or they had driven a Ford truck, and they seen a giant spider crossing a path ahead of them. And the giant spider had a leg span of an estimated 3 feet, or as commonly quoted, the size of a small dog. Their daughter, Margaret Lloyd, described the real story to English researcher William Gibbons, but without photo evidence, because he tried to grab the camera at the time. He didn't have a camera at the time on him, and then the spider basically scurried away. Some accounts said that the spider did the territorial on guard pose, because these are very territorial species, but it also allegedly scurried away. So there's different versions of this story. This story can't prove that the J'ba Fofi is in reality. In 1942, although this is a separate species, in Papua New Guinea, an Australian soldier at the Kokoda Trail described that he identified a puppy-sized spider which, inhabiting a 10 to 15 foot sized web, it has a bulky body with short, thick legs, so a bit more like the megarachni, although megarachni was reclassified as a sea scorpion now, so it's not classified as an arachnid. Megarachni, the prehistoric giant spider, is reclassified as a sea scorpion, and black and hairy like tarantula. So there's the common theme. It's a type of tarantula. In 1948, Leesville, Louisiana, United States, William Sladen with his grandchildren walked north on Highway 171 to a church when motioned to stop. When he heard rustling in bushes ahead, a giant spider, a wash tub-sized giant spider, emerged and crossed the road. One of the grandchildren later told his story to his son, Todd Partain, but without photo evidence, it cannot prove that J'ba Fofi is in reality. In November 2000, named Timbo chief of the Baka tribe in Cameroon told William Gibbons that J'ba Fofi has built the nest near their village, but evidence the scientists till now trying to find J'ba Fofi, but the Baka tribe has also told William Gibbons that the J'ba Fofi is very rare due to the dwindling habitat. It could be possible that the habitat or the spiders are moving more inland in remote areas because food's becoming scarcer. Another possibility is that oxygen levels in the Congo in that area are dwindling. So they need higher levels of oxygen. And interestingly, a few of the spiders are sighted near water. So that's possible that these could be some type of arachnid cryptid mixed with some type of crustacean evolution. So we can't rule that out. Yo, 2X, how we doing? Yo, he says, it's been a while, man. It's been a while. Looking into giant spider cryptids. So the J'ba Fofi could look something like this. And this would be like a dark brown, possibly with purple, like bright purpley stripes on the legs and a purpley abdomen. But the scale in which we are reported is that this would be a 1.5 or 5 foot leg span, possibly 6 feet with some species, but it's very hard to say. Here's another anecdote here. In the 1890s, eyewitnesses claim that they have a leg span of at least 5 feet or more, and that they live in hunting groups. Now that's interesting because spiders usually don't hunt in groups. They're usually solitary creatures. But crustaceans, sometimes they do hunt in groups. So that's pretty interesting. In the 1890s, British missionary Arthur John Symes and a group of his men are said to have encountered these giant spiders near Lake Nyassa. His men became tangled in a giant web and were attacked by a pair of the J'ba Fofi. Symes managed to free himself, but was bitten by one of the spiders and died from its venom days later. So that's a bit of a description into how capable these entities are, or these spiders are. So we don't know fully what the venom is behind it. We don't know if it's like a neurological or a neurotoxin or a different type of toxin, or like a toxin that affects your cardiological system. But what we do know is that it can kill you within a couple of days if you're to take Symes' encounter at face value. Okay, so that's another picture of what it's said to possibly look like as well. So again, dark brown description. That could be a teenage J'ba Fofi, because it's said to start its young life cycle as a yellowy color with purpley dots. So I've seen photos of a spider of this description, but I don't have the photos on me. I used to have it on my old phone and my computer. And purpley marks on its abdomen, which mature, and then the purple becomes like a darker shade, but the brown becomes like a darker shade as well. So kind of described as such. Interestingly, I read a statistic somewhere that about 93% of the world's cave systems are not explored. We've only explored about 7% of the world's cave systems. So bear that in mind as well. A Skyrim looking spider, I mean, yeah, but again, you have to think, where did people like J.R.R. Tolkien, where did Tolkien get his inspiration from? And why? This is another thing that I don't get with the human consciousness. Why are spiders and snakes in particular such a primordial fear in the human psyche, in psychological evolution? No, they get regenerated. Cave reprogramming is real. I think that they live in caves myself, which would make sense, because if there are higher levels of oxygen in caves, again, I'm not a scientist, but if there are, and if they're said to be higher levels of particular foods in caves, then who's not to say that they don't burrow? Because I mean, tarantulas, you look at an everyday tarantula, most tarantulas, they burrow. Most larger arachnids, they burrow, or they hunt using their bodies to overpower their prey. And the J'ba Fofi seems to be that type of species, which is different from the species that I will show you a bit later. Oh yeah, I've said that about mythical creatures as well. Yeah, so again, lots of speculation, and I'm not saying that this is all scientifically confirmed. but I do want to present this in ways that maybe other people have not presented. So zoologist, media consultant, and science writer, Dr. Karl Schuker. He's the man when it comes to cryptozoology. Dr. Karl Schuker is the man. Is one of the world's best-known cryptozoologists in the world, is the author of such seminal works such as Mystery Cats of the World, The Lost Ark, New and Rediscovered Animals of the 20th Century, Encyclopedia of New and Rediscovered Animals, Dragons, A Natural History. That's pretty interesting. Gosh, he's got a lot of works. In Search of Prehistoric Survivors, 1995. Then Explained, 1996. From Flying Toads to Snakes with Wings. Mysteries of Planet Earth, The Hidden Powers of Animals. Beasts That Hide from Man. Extraordinary Animals Revisited. Dr. Schuker's Casebook. Karl Schuker's Alien Zoo. From the Pages of the Fortean Times. Cats of Magic. Mythology and Mystery, Maria Barlis, a carnival of cryptozoology and unnatural history, dragons in zoology. That will be another cryptid that we're going to talk about on this show. There are videos of dragons in caves, interestingly. One of which I suspect is real. It's like a multi-headed dragon, or maybe there's more than one of them. One of which I suspect is real because the person in the video is pretty freaked out by it, and the reaction seems to be quite natural. It doesn't seem scripted to me. Cryptozoology and Culture, The Menagerie of Marvels. Here's Nessie, A Manifestation of Monsters. Yeah, he's got a lot of books. But the giant spiders. This is the what we're here for. So what we do know is that there's Theraphos blondi, or T. blondi, which is currently the world's largest giant spider species, a leg span of 11.25 inches, a body weighing 6.17 ounces, and total body length of 4.75 inches, which is the Goliath bird-eating spider, I'm pretty sure. So this is the story of the Kokoda Trail. Sorry about that. Kind of gross slurping noises. So bearing in mind that in the Second World War that the Kokoda Trail was not trekked at this time. The battle went on from July 1942 to January 1943. It was the site of World War II battles between Australian and Japanese forces, known as Kokoda Track, the Kokoda Track Campaign. In 2001, Australian cryptozoologists Peter and Debbie Hines revealed that it was also here, while serving as a soldier in the Australian Army, that the father of one of Debbie's friends had a brief but unforgettable encounter with a mystery mega spider. This is the story in detail. There's another one. There's another one in, I think it's a North American cave, actually. There's actually a very interesting video of a baby dragon in China as well, which is pretty interesting too. But that's a stream for another time. As a species, we really aren't that creative. If we were there, would be third worlds naturally. Yeah. I don't think we're as creative as we think we are. The white one. There's a gray one. There's a white and gold one, but there's also a gray one with the European styled horns. But I don't want to digress. I want to focus on this because we have a lot to cover. One day he had to take himself off into the scrub to answer to a call of nature, and thus engaged. He noticed he was crouched down next to a very large cobweb, not the classic fishing net sort, but of the fine snow white cottony stuff that spread all over the ground and the tree trunk. His eye followed it to one way and the other. Seems it was very extensive, like 10 to 15 feet either way. He then noticed the spider itself only a foot or so away from his face, so about this far from his face. It's about a foot. It was a real horror. The body, thorax, and abdomen was described as the size of a small dog or puppy. It was colored jet black. Its legs were thick. So this is probably a night hunting spider. And hairy, but not long like the classic dinner plate tarantula type. So this seems to be more old world, because there's two types of spiders, New World and Old World. This seems like a more classical Old World Mesozoic style spider, judging by the description. Spider that owes its size to the spread of its legs. This thing had a more body bulk than spread. Needless to say, he backed out of there very slowly and carefully. There's another story as well that an Australian spider hacked a green spider the size of about 2 to 3 feet across, possibly 4. But this was like a green-colored, web-dwelling species. Very different description to this type of species. Also in Papua New Guinea, I might add. The spider's body is actually the abdomen, the opithosoma, and the thorax plus the abdomen, although it can look like that to the layman unfamiliar with Spider-Man anatomy, because the thorax section is combined with the head, yielding the prosoma, I'm guessing that's like a head complex, or cephalothorax. So judging from the spider's description, the Papuan puppy spider must have been at least the size of an adult chihuahua. That might even be a juvenile size too. So that's a bit exaggerated. I don't think that that's what the spider was like myself. It's described to me as a bit more old world. Actually, let's look into those classifications because that's important. Old world versus new world spiders. I'm just going to Wikipedia this because we don't have a lot of time. This is from a tarantula keeper. Dragons got a lot of lore. Oh yeah, they do. They do. They definitely do. I'm gonna just share screen to this for a moment. So New World and Old World. This is from a hobbyist, a tarantula keeper's hobbyist. Why do people have this as a hobby? Although I guess I used to collect bugs as a kid too. Okay, so New World's tarantulas are found in the Western Hemisphere and include Theraphosauridae from North and South America and the surrounding islands. This includes species from the US, Mexico, and all of South America and the Caribbean islands. Old World tarantulas, on the other hand, are found in the Eastern continent, including Asia, Africa, Australia, and Europe. I wonder if this is to do with the migration patterns of creatures from the days of Pangaea, when the whole world was part of one giant megacontinent, supercontinent, and then it split into the two continents due to continental drifts. So defense. New World tarantulas lack the potent venom of the Old World cousins. Instead, they have evolved to possess a unique patch of hairs or setae on their abdomens or their pedipalps, which is the arms of the spider. Those are pedipalps used to defend themselves. The uticating hairs are barbed, irritating bristles that a tarantula can kick off or rub off its abdomen or palps as a deterrent to a predator. These barbs are not only for irritating the skin, but any animal that gets too close could find their eyes and respiratory tract filled with these torturous hairs. So it's like a new adaptation. Old World tarantulas, on the other hand, lack these uticating hairs, meaning that they rely more on their speed and bites as a defense or deterrent. So this must be what the J'ba Fofi is described as. It is a old world spider, much like the other species from New Guinea. Old world venom is much more potent than new world venom, and bites are particularly nasty for primates and humans. So that would mean that the funnel web is a new world, an old world spider, the Aussie funnel web. One bitten by an old world will not die from a bite unless it's something like a funnel web, as the venom is not life-threatening. However, these bites are often considered to be medically insignificant, as they can cause excruciating pain, nausea, heart palpitations, full body cramping, and trouble breathing. In the case of envenomation, the afflicted individual may find a trip to the emergency room necessary in order to mitigate the pain and symptoms. In extreme cases, bite victims have continued to experience side effects from a bite months after envenomation, like in the case of the Brazilian wandering spider, and even some species of the wolf spider. Allegedly, the wolf spider is said to do that too. Pretty interesting stuff. So I'm gonna remove that for now. Let's go back to Mr. Schuker. And then I will get into the video of the giant spider sightings of the Congo soon, but I want to give more context because we need a lot of context of this type of topic. This is a scientific topic. Yo, Dennis, Los Paisano in the house. How you doing, man? I think it's mostly just records and predator hierarchy like mammoths. Paisa? Possibly, but these species seem to be more connected to towards a more ancient species of lineage. But again, I'm not an entomologist. I'm not a spider expert. I just briefly research and look at this stuff. But entomologists, biologists, feel free to comment. Because I'm going to cover all the theories. This is not the only report of a giant spider encountered in New Guinea during World War II. During an interview with cryptozoologist Rob Morphy of AmericanMonsters.com on the US radio show Coast to Coast AM a couple of years ago, a telephone from 2014. A telephone caller named Craig recounted how his grandfather, while serving in New Guinea during World War II, encountered a monstrous spider in a web that scared him so much he hacked it to death with his machete. According to Craig's grandfather, the spider measured an immense 3 feet from tip to tip, and unexpectedly was not hairy like many big spiders are. Instead, it was shiny like the Venezuelan sightings. It was shiny and it was emerald green in color. This nightmarish arachnid was encountered near Port Moresby, the capital of Papua New Guinea. Now, we talked about the J'ba Fofi, the great spider of the Congo. We've talked about this. Yeah, so the sightings were that it scuttled away from Reginald and Margaret Lloyd. The spider sighting had a 3 to 4 foot leg span. He interestingly, this is a side note, he interestingly looks a lot like H.P. Lovecraft, this guy. Sort of gives me H.P. Lovecraft vibes. There's Margaret Lloyd, and that's Reginald. He looks awfully a lot like H.P. Lovecraft. Interestingly enough. I'm going to talk about Mokolomembe. They used to construct their hut-like lairs from leaves near the Pygmies villages by spinning mighty webs between adjacent trees with trip lines, and running across game trails. They ensnared and devoured victims as sizable as a dukia or small antelopes. Moreover, they were said by the Baka to be powerful and venomous enough to kill humans too. but are themselves killed by pygmies if they are encountered by them. The J'ba Fofi supposedly lays white peanut-sized eggs from which yellow spiderlings with purple opisthosamoses emerging brown as they mature, though they're also said to grow purple markings. For scale. Okay, I'll give you guys a scale of the J'ba Fofi because you're probably inching for this. I'm going to stop screen there for a moment. So the J'ba Fofi scale would be like this. So there's the coconut crab. We know of the coconut crab. We know that that scientifically exists. Interestingly, aquatic spiders can grow much, much, much larger than land-based counterparts. So who's not to say that it's possible that these could be water-based species as well? You can't rule that out. Interestingly, although these are said to be land dwellers, there might be more than one species of giant spider in the Congo. So that also can't be ruled out. So we'll show you a photo of one of the alleged spiders a bit later on in a separate video. There are two wild theories that I call was the Great Canopy, and the other was magic used on people that got caught in the Great Flood and turned into fish. God, I forgot his name, leading to forced adaptation. Yeah. Not too sure of that myth, though. I haven't heard about that myth. So that's the scale of the J'ba Fofi. That's Schuker nature. I'm on that site twice. I'm going to go to South America a bit later. Just want to make sure I've covered all my bases here. That's on Facebook. It's a bit personal. This is an interesting video from the Dominican Republic, although that's more to do with different spider species. Now, this is an interesting video. Is this the same? I don't think that's a J'ba Fofi. I'll segue into this because this is sort of related to the J'ba Fofi. This is a podcast from Schuker himself. And this is about Papua New Guinea as well. So listen to this. It's only audio, but this is a very interesting segment nonetheless.
Example. One which really intrigues me was it occurred in the Second World War in
Now, I'm going to say that the illustration here, except for the long legs, would be more like the Australian spider sighting of the creature of what I would envision it to be.
Papua New Guinea, the eastern half of the island of New Guinea. And there was an Australian soldier going along a famous track called the Kokoda track, which goes over a great distance across the Owen Stanley mountain range. And he felt a call of nature needed, so he stepped off the path into some undergrowth and noticed straight away that there was a tree in front of him and a lot of undergrowth on the other side were absolutely covered with this thick white cobweb. Very, very thick, not just the flimsy kind you normally see. And casting his eyes about, he suddenly looked ahead, and there in front of him, less than a foot away from his face, was this gigantic black spider. And I mean gigantic in terms of, he described that the body alone was the size of a small puppy. And the black spider...
A small puppy? Oh, my.
Yeah, a puppy size, and that was just the body. That wasn't the legs and the head. That was just the body. He said the legs actually weren't that long. Sometimes you get, small-bodied, disproportionately long-legged spiders. This was tended to be the other way. The legs were broad, but not particularly long. It was the body that was so huge. And the spider gazed at him, and he gazed at the spider, and decided very cautiously to step back very slowly, very carefully back onto the track, and all calls of nature long forgotten, and made his way and didn't come back that way. And also during the same period, during the Second World War in Papua New Guinea again, an American soldier, this time close to the capital of Papua New Guinea, Port Moresby, encountered another even larger, he said it was about 3 to 4 feet across, and it had a bright, unusually for spiders, but not unknown, it had a bright emerald green body and wasn't hairy. Most spiders are famously or infamously hairy, but this one wasn't. And again, he bid a hasty retreat upon seeing it. So, there's two quite different spiders, but both, unusually, exceptionally large in Papua New Guinea.
I want to make sure that we have the connection correct here. And I didn't mishear what you said. Did you say 3 or 4 feet across?
Yeah.
Suddenly, it doesn't matter whether it's hairy or not. That's just one big spider.
Oh, yeah.
What is it about Papua New Guinea? As a cryptozoologist, you've no doubt heard, the legend of the rope and these pterosaurs or pterodactyls that supposedly.
I was one of the first people to actually make.
I'm just going to add a side note that the Congo Mardo is another cryptid, also in the Congo, funnily enough. It's known as the breaker of boats, and it is a pterodactyl-like creature with a 10 to 12 foot wingspan, and it swoops down and it harasses the villages of one of the different tribes, not the Baka tribe, but like a river-dwelling tribe deeper in the Congo.
That news public back in the late 1990s when that news of that came my way. So yeah, I know the rope.
There you go. Well. What is it about Papua New Guinea? It must be a cryptozoologist's, dream to go there.
Well, it's the second largest island, not counting Australia, which is an island continent. It's the second largest island in.
I bet that there would be a cryptid similar to this in Australia too. I bet there would be.
The world, only Greenland is larger, and it's 70% or more covered by virgin rainforest, much of which has never been explored, even today. So if you're going to find unusual things, Papua New Guinea, or the whole of New Guinea, Papua New Guinea is just the eastern half, the western half is Indonesia, New Guinea. Yeah. Those are the areas where you are going to find things, and things are turning up.
And
only
the Congo,
a few years ago, a very large.
And Burma. There's also sightings in Burma too.
Large black and white tree kangaroo that never been seen by science at all was found in the western Indonesian half of New Guinea. That was a completely new species. A new species of giant rat the size of a cat or small dog was found again only a few years ago.
There's also allegedly a small dog-sized mosquito in Papua New Guinea too.
In that same area. So, things that are quite large and quite unusual are still turning up fairly regularly in New Guinea. So giant spiders, in terms of being a novelty, are not really that novel in New Guinea because there are so many other things turning up.
Yeah. So that was Dr. Karl Schuker himself. But it's very interesting. This makes me wonder about the war tunnels and trenches. That could be why they had to do demolition. I mean, that's a possibility. I didn't even think about that. That's a possibility, Space Bank. During the Congo Civil War, I also saw a couple of comments from people that are supposed to be involved in the Congo Civil War. And they were saying the same thing about J'ba Fofi, and also in Vietnam too, that there were giant spiders there and they had to blow them up. And that they were actually like eating people. So it could be something a bit more to that. Same as the sewage system as well. I'm going to show you guys some comments about the sewage system. Now, this is one of the more recent sightings of the J'ba Fofi, or believed to be. It's not very clear. I'm just going to give you a heads up. It's not very clear. I've watched this clip countless times. But this was supposed to be captured back in 2014 in Mozambique by some campers. They heard stories of native villagers coming across giant burrows and seeing giant webs around the nearby area. So they decided to take a camera with them. And before they tucked it to their tent, they put the camera on a nearby tree and began recording overnight. I would say that the only real way to record these types of creatures would be probably at nighttime, with infrared cameras, if they have access to them, or like thermal cameras if they have access to that. I think that's the only thing that would have been missing here, but basically it's in the top right around this section of the video. You'll sort of see something on the edge of the tree. So that's part of the tree itself. So try to picture the scale of the tree, and then this creature's about this big, and then it crawls along, but it's very blurry. You don't see much. So I'm going to warn you there. But this might even be another species. We don't know for sure that this is J'ba Fofi. This is just an alleged J'ba Fofi sighting. But interestingly, again, near water. Something there. Playback. And then it crawls away. But if you look closely in the background, it runs, jumps, and then it actually crosses that river. And I'll play that again. See, it jumps. It literally jumps. It's there, and it jumps. So again, it's very blurry. I'm not going to say that that's a confirmation. I just wanted to point that out. Is there bamboo in the area? It is said to generate double the oxygen. I would have died. I can't see anything. It's not a very clear sighting, that sighting, just so you guys know. But I do want to show you this. Now this is very interesting. Giant spider filmed in the Congo. There's this, but there's also this video. It's the Congo video, but there's a giant spider sighting video. Go away, ad. 2 ads in a row. Frustrating. Okay, I'll show you the satellite image first, and then I'll show you the video excerpt. So a bit of an AI slop, but we're going to skip a little bit forward.
I didn't believe there was a giant spider in Congo. But I'm so curious.
Right there.
But when I see this,
that's big, too.
Now I believe there is a big giant spider in Congo forest.
So, bit hard to tell if it's AI slop or not. Can I zoom in? It looks purpley, but again, I don't know if the lighting naturally matches the shadows and the terrain around it. But look, it looks like it's walking towards a burrow. See, that could be a burrow right there in the cave. But look at its legs. Leg 1, leg 2, leg 3, leg 4, leg 4, leg 4, leg 5. So that itself could be a crab still. I can't rule that out as a crab, but I'm just legitimately curious as to whether it is like a... Yeah, it's a very interesting comment here. If it's like 50-50 water and land, or like a swampy forest, who's not to say that a coconut crab type of crustacean couldn't be there, but it'd be a carnivorous one if it's got spider-like traits. But that's more terrifying than an actual spider itself, though they're both pretty terrifying. But that's from a satellite image. If you do believe that, judge that yourself. Like I said, photographic evidence is scarce, but that's pretty interesting to note. Did that not share? Did that not share? All right, I don't know if that's shared or not. Now, this is from Unexplained Mysteries. This is one of the more believable sightings because this is an actual photograph. Before you judge the size of the spider, and again, some people say that this is a photography trick. Maybe, I don't know. I don't live in the Congo. I'm not there. Number one, look at how high the tree is. First of all, judge how high the tree is. Is the spider more in the foreground, or is the spider in the background and further up? Secondly, this does not describe the J'ba Fofi. This looks more like a fishing spider or some sort of long-legged tree-dwelling species. It kind of looks a bit like a wolf spider to me, but this is a tree dweller, not a ground crawler. So you tell me. You tell me. Yeah, interesting parallel. He's a skeptic. This is an interesting comment. Some of the comments here are very interesting. In addition to spiders being confirmed by local tribes, we have multiple military reports, as well as several acclaimed naturalists who have encountered these things. It is a huge world, and there are still wondrous discoveries to be made. I hope this guy said they did not see another one while continuing their planned research. But that's an interesting comment to note. If there are military encounters, I'm curious as to where they are. This is another anecdote, but this is from central Kentucky, Harrington Lake. I encountered a wolf spider in the bathroom while I was taking a leak. It was on the wall close to the ceiling. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was so big that I couldn't fathom it. I looked up information about wolf spiders. The one I encountered was 8 or 10 inches in diameter, which places it as twice as big as any known specimens in the region. After I killed it with a broom, it shriveled up and it was still as big as a baseball. It would not surprise me one bit if there were giant spiders in the Congo. That's pretty terrifying. But they're one of the better species, though. They're one of the species you want to keep with you because they eat brown recluses. Is that AI? That looks like AI. Stop. So again, this is a counterclaim that spiders only a few feet away. The camera angle along with the chaotic backdrop makes it look pretty easy to pass off as huge. I'm pretty sure these professional explorers have cameras that can zoom in. So we don't know the zoom in, that's true. The spider is a bit blurrier than the tree as well. And also the two legs do seem to pass in front of the branch. But this is a web dweller. This is not necessarily J'ba Fofi. I don't think this is a J'ba Fofi. I just don't. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. This looks like more like a wolf or a fishing spider. Oh, here's an interesting comment. I've heard about the shown spider before. It's another big species, one that makes radial nets, like that shape. It's a radial net that's got like that shape. There is another J'ba Fofi one in night vision. Well, we saw that in the night vision video. It is indeed 1.5 meters in diameter roughly. Very interesting. South Africa. But you be the judge of that. Some people believe here that the thing is gigantic, and the thing looks like it's obviously gigantic because it's taken from ground level. and that it is much larger than a Goliath bird-eating spider. This estimate here is pretty interesting. It's believed to have a 3-foot length body with an approximately leg tip to length tip of 12 to 14 feet. It possibly could be the biggest Hercules baboon spider, or maybe a huntsman spider species. Usually huntsman spider species don't spin webs like that, though. At least the ones here. Don't know about the African ones. But a Hercules baboon spider is a very interesting claim. That's the comment I was looking for. So let's have a look.
Pushed through a particularly dense thicket, they stumbled upon a vast clearing, and above them was an expansive web stretched out before them. In the center of the colossal web sat a huge spider. Thomas said that he'd never seen a spider this big before and proceeded to take photographs. However, due to how high up the spider was, he said that it was difficult to capture.
So that's the outline. As you can see, it is a quite thick, the head, very elongated abdomen. You can also notice its pedipalps upon closer zooming in. But the legs in proportion to the body are not like the J'ba Fofi. They are very, very long. And you can see there's one leg segment, two leg segments, and then what looks like it's in front of the radial web. The legs ended about there, roughly there, from the perspective there, and there.
He also pointed out that there was webbing around the creature, but noted that it doesn't show up in the photos. Thomas then said that Nkosi warned him about this creature, telling him to be cautious, as this spider is venomous. Nkosi told Thomas to back away, sensing that the creature's patience was wearing thin.
Maybe that's just like there. That could be it's like there, actually. So it seems to be old world spider.
Natives who live in these regions consider the spider to be the jungle's guardian, and said that it had allowed them a glimpse into its world, but that the time had come for them to leave. As the two explorers retreated from the clearing, Thomas couldn't wait to share his finding, and said that he now feels a newfound appreciation for the rainforest and its mysteries. In the days that followed, Thomas said that they didn't encounter another one of these spiders, but said that due to the experience it's given him a newfound respect for the natural world. Interestingly, this isn't the first time that this creature has allegedly been encountered. The Congo rainforest, one of the most biologically diverse regions on Earth, is steeped in ancient legends and mythical creatures. Among these tales, the legend of the J'ba Fofi spider stands out, capturing the imagination of the indigenous peoples of the Congo for...
That's not the profile of a J'ba Fofi, though. As I mentioned earlier, the J'ba Fofi has either hut-like structures and tripwires, and it hunts like a trapdoor spider, or it's a ground dweller. This is a tree dweller.
Generations. The legend of the J'ba Fofi spider has its roots in the oral traditions of the indigenous peoples of the Congo region. The term J'ba Fofi translates to giant spider in the local dialect, reflecting the awe and fear the creature inspires. These tales describe a colossal arachnid that surpasses the size of any known spider species, with some accounts claiming it spans several meters in diameter. In the rich tapestry of Congolese folklore, the spider is...
If it's that big, which judging from that former satellite image, it kind of does suggest like it's that big. Maybe it's a crustacean. Maybe it's just a type of crustacean.
Is often depicted as a guardian of the jungle, inhabiting the deepest and most remote corners of the rainforest. Its presence is believed to be both a symbol of protection and a harbinger of danger, making it an integral part of the cultural fabric of the local communities. Although the spider has captivated the imagination of countless storytellers and adventurers...
All right, that's an AI slop there, but that's very interesting. That's crazy. There's more evidence of a Shinnequeg golem spiritual guardian creature than a giant spider. I mean, yeah, but I outlined reasons why. I did mention that these could be burrowing, cave-dwelling species. and I suggested using either LiDAR or thermal images and satellite images to confirm the sightings. But I can't rule out I'm not ruling out the encounters. I don't do that on the show. Now let's move more towards the Americas and South America. Now this is an alleged image. Some people do say it's a hoax though, so I'm not ruling this one out or not. I'm just saying that this is allegedly a hoax. I can't find the original source. Sorry guys, I used to be able to find the original source, but I can't find it. This is cited in Mexico. This is a alleged satellite image of Mexico, spider in Mexico. Now, interestingly, when you compare it, it looks a little bit like Megarachne. Not entirely, but it looks a little bit like Megarachne, which is said to be a sea scorpion. That was the false constructed image from Megarachne there. But it doesn't look exactly, see, it looks aquatic to me. It doesn't even look like what you would think a tarantula in the classical sense or the modern sense would be. Yes, and there are giant spider sightings in the Appalachian Mountains as well. So this is where skepticism goes. This is a skeptical source, so I'm going to be as balanced as I can. I'm not a scientist, however, I have over 35 tarantulas in my house, 5 of which are the largest known species, and know a little bit about spiders as far as giant spiders go. We have tarantulas, which are their own group of primitive spiders. It's a key word, primitive spiders, falling under the mygalomorph under order with funnel webs. So funnel webs are like a cousin of the tarantula. That's why they have pretty similar anatomy. Then we have true spiders, like the ones most people are familiar with, the largest of which are huntsmen. There are also large huntsman spiders sighted in Laos as well. Laos is alleged to have 3 feet wide spiders, although confirmed scientific findings confirm the giant spiders of Laos, the giant huntsman of Laos. This is the widest spider species of Laos. The giant cave-dwelling huntsman of Laos, actually. I'm going to segue. It's all good, man. It's part of the job. Yeah. Yes, there are Appalachian giant spider sightings as well. There used to be a video of a couple, a man and what might be his wife or his girlfriend. They're driving in the Appalachian Mountains. This was in about 2008, 2009. And the camera, by memory, he pans to the left, I think, pans to the left. And you see a giant, like, German Shepherd sized spider dead upside down on the ground. And it looks like a type of huntsman, judging from the underside, with like spots on it, like white spots, icy light blue and darkish blue legs and brown, but it's like dead like this. It pans left, and this couple quickly hops out of the car, pans left, they see this dead spider, it pans quickly back in, they go back in the car, and they just leg it out of this place in the Appalachian Mountains. I could not find the original video because apparently the original video has been scrubbed. If anyone can find it, please let me know. I will present it on the show. That's one of the more believable sightings of giant spiders, but that was quickly scrubbed off the net. So who really knows? Dang, that's what happened here. Hasn't been no sightings of anything past 2010. Yeah. And I'm wondering if this is due to electromagnetic fluctuations, which affects the migration patterns of the spiders, or if there's just less food because there's less insects around and the giant spider sightings are just migrating elsewhere, or maybe they're just staying in their own dwellings, or there's just less oxygen now and the oxygen levels in these places is dwindling. Therefore, the spiders themselves are dwindling because they just are. They just are. Skip me a moment. I apologize for dead air. I really need to go to the bathroom. I'll be back. But I will segue into the Lao huntsman spiders and this comment because this is a skeptical source. And then I'm going to go back to Schuker. Sorry about the dead air, guys. All right, where were we? Let's look at the giant huntsman of Laos. Yeah, this is it. So that's the species there. As you can see, it's got very, very long legs. It is a New World swole. I would classify it more as a Old World spider. Yeah, it's this is a cave dweller. So grown man's hand, leg span's pretty large. I would say that's about a foot across, 30 centimeter leg span, scientifically confirmed. Interestingly, this was only recently discovered as of, there it is there, in its cave dwellings. It was only recently discovered in about 2001. That's the Australian equivalent there. But in Laos, that's it there with its distinct markings. Why the giant huntsman spider Heteropoda maxima is rarely or poorly documented. It is documented, it's just rarely or poorly documented. I think because it's a cave dweller and it's people just don't go near caves. There's another spider species close to it, which is the Thai cave spider. I didn't know about that. That's new to me. And I've seen some sources that it's also the H. maxima heteropoda sp Thai. So there's the Thai cave spider. There's also the Lao one. My understanding is not complete, but for the main reasons I have found are having been documented as recently as 2001. It is a very new species by scientific standards. Yep. The species is endemic to one of a few remote cave systems in Laos, whose locations are not public knowledge due to the risk it would pose to the spiders. So there's a possibility that the locals hide these, or they don't hide them, but they protect these habitats. A lot of forests in Southeast Asia are comparatively inaccessible and have low population densities, leading to sightings of certain animals being rare if they have a limited range. A lot of news sites and documentation online prefer sensationalism to accuracy. Oh yeah, that does happen in this type of field, especially cryptozoology, a lot. But there might be more species of this species too, so I can't rule that out. It's not a J'ba Fofi. J'ba Fofi is not a huntsman at all. I don't know why people always attribute this to being J'ba Fofi, J'ba Fofi, J'ba Fofi. J'ba Fofi is a tarantula. Sightings, autocorrect. Doesn't a spider remind you of an octopus? I had that thought as well. It's like an octopus of the land, now that I come to think of it. And that's what makes them so primordial. There's just something about spiders. They're just so primordial and Mesozoic and beyond ancient, which does give me the heebie-jeebies, but like, I don't know, I find more comfort with an octopus than I do, maybe with the exception of the big fin squid. That thing scares me. But like, I'm less afraid of an octopus than I am of a spider for some reason. Imagine if spiders ran the show. Imagine if spiders ran reality. And because they can see things with their eyes, their 8 eyes, they see things in such a way where humans just can't. And they perceive reality in just such a crazy way that they have this connection to the cosmos. So that would be a crazy thought. Okay, I'm going to segue back to this. This is from the tarantula keeper. That's not true. I don't believe that's true. So he believes that the largest tarantulas are terrestrial, ground-dwelling species, not webbers like the J'ba Fofi. J'ba Fofi is probably not even a species of tarantula. It might be a species of trapdoor spider. In fact, it doesn't really make sense for such a large spider to be arboreal or to spin webs, but that's part of the profile. I did make the profile. The locals did. The first reason is fall risk. The larger a spider gets, the more prone to damage it becomes, unless it's partially crustacean. Many medium-sized spiders are at risk of dying from a fall of just 2 to 3 feet onto a firm surface, which is why it's not recommended to hold them upright. Arboreal tarantulas or climbing species tend to be far more slender in the body and lightweight for this reason, like the Congo sighting fishing spider species that we looked at, and rarely grow as large. An exception would be the Poisoletheria species, which are native to Asia and not Africa. Can't rule that out. Not based on that photo we saw anyway in Asia. The largest ground-dwelling tarantulas are from South America, including the Theroposa sturmi, Theroposa blondi, and the Theroposa apophysis. Blondi is the heaviest, that's the Goliath bird-eating spider, and the apophysis has the longest leg span. Maybe not necessarily because of the Lao huntsman spider, giant huntsman spider. In Africa, the species appears to be the king baboon, which is only known to reach around 8 inches in length, and which is nothing compared to South American species. I wonder, though, what the distribution of oxygen and rainfall would be like for the South American rainforests and also the Congo, if they're on a similar latitude to Vietnam as well. One way is the way that they breathe. The larger they get, the greater the oxygen required. Obviously, spiders' book lungs are not well adapted to growing to such large sizes with the current oxygen saturation. There's the fall risk. There's also predation. Large spiders are extremely vulnerable to predation without any significant venom or speed. A spider this large would very likely be clumsy, and venom is energy intensive to create. It's simply unlikely a tarantula as large as described would have the venom, yield, or agility to defend itself. Would rule that out. Not going to rule that out. Molting. The larger a spider grows, the more difficult it is for them to molt. The higher risk they have of dying during a molt. They also molt a lot less frequently. Many older spiders will often look tattered and bald because they lose all their hair and don't regrow it until they molt next. That's an interesting bit of input, though. A tarantula this large will be vulnerable to damage from its environment and prey. You could expect it would need to molt fairly frequently to repair this damage. A large tarantula like the one pictured can take up to 2 weeks to fully harden its fangs before it can safely feed again. Their exoskeletons are extremely soft for at least 48 hours post-molt, and their fangs are vulnerable to fracture for those full 2 weeks. A broken fang or two is a death sentence for a spider. So you're talking about a lumbering tree-dwelling spider is prone to fall damage, cannot heal without undergoing, would likely be 3 to 4 weeks of time before it's up and running again. And large predators would love to eat these guys because large spiders are rich sources of protein. So then that begs the other question: are there giant species of wasp? Giant sightings of centipedes are also said to exist as well. Possible mind control and manipulation is commonly associated with spiders. That's right. That's right. So I can't rule that out. Also, spiders are said to be weavers of destinies and weavers of birth charts. So there's that element to it as well. Let's go over to South America now. You've been long waiting for the South America part of the show. So this is what I suspect is a known species. I don't know which species this is, but this is a known species believed to be some sort of tarantula. But this spider's just chasing a grown man. And I don't really know which type of spider it is. This spider is actually a Hispaniolan giant tarantula. It's very common to see them in the Dominican Republic. Their fangs are quite formidable at more than 2 centimeters long, but also living in the same area is the spider wasps who hunt these large spiders. People thought the spider filmed was something cryptozoological or rare, but isn't. Despite their size and tendency to bite humans, the spiders are popular pets in the Dominican Republic. Count me out. Count me out. Okay, so he's identified it. Hispaniolan giant tarantula. This is a known species. Oh my god, it's coming back with a vengeance. Oh my! It comes out of a burrowing. Oh my! Don't move! Don't move! Don't move! Ah! Oh my! Don't move! Don't move! Don't move! Oh no! He's just guarding its territory. Okay, hysteria, but nonetheless, big spiders in South America, yeah, for sure. Okay, except all. Looks like Shelob. All right, let's go over back to Dr. Schuker to look at the claims. Reports of comparably massive spiders have also been recorded from the rainforests of Venezuela in South America. The Paranormal Podcast talks about this. In 2008, the American television series Monster Quest sent tarantula expert Rick C. West to investigate such stories in the field via a short filmed expedition to some Venezuelan jungle villages near Orinoco River and the border with Colombia. During his 3-day foray He was accompanied by a team of local helpers and an experienced Amazon guide, Juan Carlos Ramirez, who has worked here for over 20 years. West began his quest by visiting the village of San Rafael de Manuar. Here, one villager attested that as a child, he had seen a giant tarantula-like spider capture a small dog from the village and drag it off into the jungle. The opithosoma was as big as a basketball, and when it reared up, it was the size of a human. If such a gigantic spider existed, its fangs, or chelicerae, were in proportion to the rest of its body, they would probably measure 6 to 9 inches long. Although such claims would incite considerable scientific skepticism, Ramirez was convinced of the village's veracity, stating that they know the local fauna very well and would not mistake something familiar, such as a monkey or a sloth or the ground, for a giant spider. West and his team also visited Pandari, a village deeper in the mountains. Here, to inhabitants Antonio and his son Simone spoke of a small child who had disappeared, never to return, which had been blamed upon giant spiders. In addition, so real is the Pandari villagers' fear of such creatures that they even engineer their huts specifically to keep them out. Building thatched roofs that extend all the way down to the ground, thus yielding dense, tightly interwoven barricades. On the third day of West's expedition, they headed down back to the jungle and found an extremely large spider lair in the ground, inside of which they placed a video scope. This revealed the presence there of a very large tarantula, which they captured alive. Although nothing as sizable as the reputed chicken-killing, dog-devouring, child-abducting specimens feared by the villagers, which was roughly the same size as the biggest tarantulas on record and was 2 ounces when weighed inside a plastic specimen bag. Sadly, West's expedition ended without finding conclusive evidence of Venezuela's fabled giant spiders. However, he was sufficiently impressed by the size of the captured spider to consider it possible bigger ones in the jungle, and said that he planned on returning on a search for more. In 2011, British cinematographer Richard Terry sought horse-killing, child-abducting giant spiders in Colombia's rainforest for the television series Man vs. Monster. He couldn't find any either, but villagers claimed that these sort of dreaded beasts inhabited subterranean lairs opening onto the forest floor via huge holes. I mean, I would believe a claim like this. That's a claim I would believe. But are they looking in the wrong direction? You have to wonder. This is an interesting sighting. The giant spiders of Vietnam. On the 8th of April 2013, American cryptozoologist Craig Woolheater posted on Crypto Mundo website a fascinating communication that he had lately received from an American correspondent, publicly identified only by CryptoMundo username MRX Maxima. This person stated that their father-in-law claims that while serving in the jungles of Vietnam during the Vietnam War, as part of a 5-man unit conducting scout work there, he encountered spiders with bodies the size of dinner plates and with their legs yielding a total span of 20 to 32 inches. These terrifying arachnids were always spied near to creeks and other water sources and were so tough that even after being shot by him and other men with the M16s and unloaded full magazines, they were still moving around. It's a very bold claim. I don't believe that claim 100%. But if this were to be a crustacean, there maybe. I'm not 100% sure on that claim, to be honest. We talked about that. That's the Louisiana giant spider sighting. There's also an English sighting. We talked a little bit about that before. But this is the interesting theory going on. Oh, we're nearly towards the end. Giant crabs, I'm going to go on to that in part 2. I might make a part 2. Giant crabs, not giant spiders. Interestingly, there is a notable precedent for the development of a novel respiratory organ among land-dwelling arthropods. The largest of such species living today is the Burgess lato, or latro, which sports a body length of up to 16 inches and weigh up to 9 pounds, and a leg span of more than 3 feet. Indigenous to various islands in the Indian and Pacific Oceans, despite being a crab, it is exclusively terrestrial. It cannot swim and will drown if immersed in water for over an hour, and has evolved a unique respiratory organ known as a branchiostegal lung that enables it to exist today entirely on land, which developmentally can be seen as a midway between gills and true lungs. I'm wondering if the J'ba Fofi and the giant spiders of the Amazon also have a branchiostegal lung, same as Papua New Guinea, and we'll look into other stories, probably in a part 2. So who knows if crustaceans, which are presumably aquatic arthropods, can achieve this during evolution. Maybe spiders, which are predominantly terrestrial anyway, have also achieved something comparable. Moreover, it is suggested that perhaps some reports of so-called giant spiders are actually giant sightings of land crabs. But crabs are very different in appearance to spiders, due in no way to their visible pincers or the chelae, and no such crabs are known to exist on any of the regions which the giant spiders are here to have been reported like such, the chelae. And also 3 sets of legs, not 4 sets of legs on each side. They do have what's similar to an abdomen, but they have a thorax, and they also have a head and these things too. So they're still distinct from arachnids. Arachnids only have 2 parts. The head is integrated within the thorax. But yeah, it still remains a mystery of today. Very interesting book. I should try to check that out if I can. A Carnival of Cryptozoology and Unnatural History. Yeah, I'll look more into that in part 2, because there are other giant spider sightings and stories, including Vietnam, and that'll segue nicely into Vietnam stories and alleged sightings as well. So I'll stop that there for now. And then, so weird, ain't looking. Yeah, this is pretty weird. The world is stranger. What makes me skeptical about the Mexico sea spider is that when you Google the coordinates or the alleged coordinates of where it is, this is a geographical center of India. This takes you to India, somewhere in the ocean. And Megarachne was reclassified into a different entity altogether. So that's the original fossil there. That was the original classification of Megarachne, but it's not a spider. It was reclassified into a giant sea scorpion. That's the largest known fossil spider in recorded science. And Megarachne would be seen as more like this, more along the 2 feet to 3 foot size specimen there, but it's more so classified as a type of sea scorpion, but I forget the scientific name of it. Along the family of this. Yeah. Let's look at some actual scientific evidence. Yeah, that was the original proposed model, working model of the 300 million year old spider there. It was misidentified, more like this, or like that. It's a Eurypterid, compared to a 6 foot tall man, a Eurypterid, reclassified as such. And then there's the family, Megarachne, Pterygotis, Jacaleopterus, Megalograptus, and Eurypterus. So I wouldn't rule out the scorpion theory here. Yeah, it's an arthropod, but it's a Eurypterid, typically unearthed from the late Carboniferous deposits, and specifically from the Gazillian stage, located in the Bajo de Veliz formation of San Luis, Argentina. And it measures at 54 centimeters long. Megarachne stood moderately, it's a moderately sized Eurypterid, although there were larger than man-sized Eurypterids that existed later on, but these are more like sea scorpions. So can't really rule that out. Canada, interestingly enough, is one of these, with a body length of 1.8 feet. It's an AI visualization. We don't really like AI on this show. You can't escape the sting. No, you can't. You cannot escape the sting. That's an Instagram post of the Mongolorachne jurassica. Mongolorachne jurassica, but it's not enormous. All right, I'll conclude that there for now, but I'm quite skeptical of the Mexican sighting, although that does look like a plausible model of what it would look like. To me, it looks more like Megarachne, and maybe this is a species of Euripid. That might not be an arachnid at all, so I can't rule that out. But the coordinates, at least the ones he's given, are more connected with India. So I doubt that that is going to be, oh, wow, whoa, interesting. But I doubt that that's going to be an actual giant spider cryptid sighting. Giant spider cryptids are elusive, although I still believe that they are possible, but the likelihood of getting the eggs, the molt, or trying to deal with local tribes makes it very difficult to get physical specimens, unless the Smithsonian already has them. And I will try to dig deeper and find more of those comments. So I'm going to stop that there. That's part 1. I will move over to rarer sightings in part 2. for the cryptid analysis, because this is a very, very large topic and there's just so much to cover. But definitely check out Karl Schuker if you have the time. I want to check out his book, see if I can get a copy of his book. And I might give this show a little bit of a break for now because I'm still researching the Baal Haman sightings, or the Baal Haman topic. I was requested 2 or 3 weeks ago, possibly longer now. But I want to give this show a little bit of a break. It's got to research, and I want to do maybe some more business stuff on my business channel. Having said that, take care, ladies and gentlemen, all the best, and I'll see you in upcoming streams. Humanus Invictus, the human spirit remains unconquered.